Good afternoon. Welcome to another Facebook Live presentation coming to you from your Spokane Woodcraft store. This afternoon, we're going to talk about the wonderful world of glues and adhesives. And if you received our email, the question in the email that I posed to you was, did you know that there is a difference? And if so, do you know what that difference is between glue and adhesive? Now, the accepted usage of the terms glues and adhesives has become, well, pretty much interchangeable. So the difference between them, though, is that a glue is based on natural animal or plant materials, such as, believe it or not, animal bones and hooves. So the old joke about, taking the old nag, the old broken down horse to the glue factory, there is some truth to that particular story. Adhesives, on the other hand, are based on synthetic chemical ingredients. And of course, both products do accomplish the same thing, which is to bond two pieces of some kind of a material together. So the difference between glues and adhesives, one's natural, one's a synthetic chemical, but they both accomplish the same thing. So the differences are very, very technical, I suppose, but also pretty much to the point of being trivial when it comes right down to it. So as you can see on our workbench today, we do have laid out quite a variety of glues and adhesives, if we want to follow the rules, from very simple single compound polyvinyl acetate glues like the Titebond formulas that you see here. This particular Titebond, this is the Titebond original. This is for interior use. Then you have Titebond 2, which can be used for an exterior application for limited exposure to the elements. And then you have Titebond 3. Now, one of the benefits of Titebond 3 is that this is a waterproof adhesive. It can be used in an outdoor project where it will be exposed to direct moisture. The other nice thing about Titebond 3 is that this product is actually approved by the Food and Drug Administration for indirect food contact. That makes this an excellent choice for cutting boards. So any of you that are planning to make cutting boards for the holidays, which are coming up before you know it, the Titebond 3 is an excellent choice for cutting boards. That's what I have used in cutting boards before. So you have the original, the Titebond 2, and the Titebond 3. Another benefit to Titebond 3 is that it does have a little bit longer open time than the other versions. And we'll talk more about open time and cure time and clamp time and all that here in just a few moments. Now, there are some what Titebond calls custom PVA blends, and that would be these that are located here in the center. This particular one is their melamine glue. Now, melamine is traditionally a hard material to get anything to stick to, just simply because of the nature of the material. You've all seen it. It's the white stuff that you make countertops out of and all that kind of thing. So most everybody knows what melamine is. So this glue will adhere to melamine. It will adhere two pieces of melamine together. It will also adhere to vinyl as well as, believe it or not, wood. So that's the melamine. The Titebond Dark. Now this is the same as the Titebond 2. It's just got some colorant in it to darken it a little bit. It is very, very good for helping to hide the glue lines when you're working with a dark wood, walnut or mahogany or wenge or any of those types of woods. The Titebond 2 Dark will help to hide those glue lines. Of course, glue lines shouldn't show in the first place, but if they do, the Titebond Dark will help to hide those. Next in line, you have the No Run, No Drip. Now, we don't sell an awful lot of this particular product. And honestly, I'm not really sure why, because it is a really, really good glue. Once you apply it, it stays where you put it. It doesn't tend to run or drip, hence the name, no run, no drip. And it's really good for moldings and trim work, simply because it stays where you put it and it doesn't run. So molding and trim work, really, really good. And then we have the Extend, the Titebond Extend. That has a longer open time. It is a 15-minute open time. Those are really good for complex glue-ups where you have a lot of different pieces that you're trying to glue together to make one big piece. You have this as rated for interior and then an exterior rated as well. So the Titebond Extend gives you a little bit more open time. So I guess while we're on the subject of open times and so forth, before we move on, let's just cover what some of those different terms mean. And Joel, before I get into that, do we have any questions from anybody out there?
One of our viewers asked, what the comment was, I hear that Titebond 3 shouldn't be used with walnut. Have you heard something about that before?
I have not. I've not heard anything about that. I don't know why that would be. Walnut is typically a very easy wood to work with. It's not like it has a lot of naturally occurring oil in it. I do not know why that would be. I've not heard that before. So if whoever's asking that question, if they would like to call the store and talk about that some more, I'd be happy to talk with them about that. And if that is an issue, then I would like to find that out myself. But I've not heard that before. No. Anything else?
Not at this time.
Not right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about a few of the phrases and terminology that you may have heard as related to glue, such as pot life. Now, pot life typically is only, that phrase is typically only used in glues that have two components that have to be mixed together. For instance, epoxy. Epoxy is a two component, you have a resin and a hardener. Hide glue, dry hide glue will have a pot life because you have to mix the granules with water, so there's your two components. And then you have a pot life established for those particular adhesives. Now, pardon me, epoxy, this particular one, we have the number 2 medium hardener. There is a number 1 hardener, which is called the fast hardener, and there's a number 3, which is a slow hardener. The resin is the same. It's the formulation in the hardener that changes the cure time. Changes the cure time on your epoxies. I've also got here what they call their quick cure 15. So this cures in 15 minutes. And then they have what they call the T88, which is an actual structural adhesive. This is really good it's a good adhesive to use in conditions that are really, really nasty and adverse to any other kind of glue. It's a very strong glue. Like again, it's a structural epoxy, very strong bond. Excuse me. So the definition of pot life is the maximum amount of time you have to apply this two-component glue or adhesive to your workpiece after you mix it. So let's take, for instance, the Quick Cure 15. This is your pot life on this. Of course, it's not going to tell me right off the bat here, is it? Your pot life on this is probably about 10 minutes. Once epoxies begin to gel, as they begin that curing process, I personally don't trust them much beyond that point. Let's see, I think I have a reference here somewhere. I'll have to look that up. So any of you that want specific pot life on these glues, feel free to give me a call. We'll talk about that in more detail. But that's pot life. How long do you have to apply that glue once you mix it? Open time. The open time is the maximum amount of time you have, or the maximum amount of time that you can leave two pieces open to the air that you've applied the glue to. That's your open time. So you've got, a 10-minute, let's see, your Titebond Extend has a 15-minute open time. So what that means is that I can put glue on this part, glue on this part, glue on that part, glue on that part, and I have 15 minutes to bring all those parts together before the glue is starting to cure. And it looks like we have a question.
Yeah, you've got Titebond 1, Titebond 2, Titebond 3, and you have the extenders for Titebond 1, 2. Is there a extender for Titebond 3?
There is not. And I want to make sure that we're all talking about this from the same perspective. This is not an extender for this. This is the glue itself. They've formulated it in such a way that it has a longer open time than this one does. So it's not like you would take this and add it to that to get a longer open time. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page there. But there is not an Extend Titebond 3, at least not that I'm aware of. I've never seen one if there is.
Thank you.
You bet. Clamp time. Clamp time is the minimum amount of time that a workpiece should stay clamped together before you remove it from the clamps. Pretty simple. Cure time. Now, cure time is different than clamp time. It's different than dry time. Cure time is the amount of time it takes for that glue bond to reach 100% bond strength. That's when the glue is cured. Some of them will take up to 24 hours to achieve that. And though that is all spelled out on pretty much all of the different labels for the different types of glue. The shelf life. Shelf life is the amount of time that a glue is actually usable. Most of your Titebond polyvinyl acetate, your PVA glues, are going to have a shelf life of about 2 years. Adhesives, or I should say glues, like your dry hide glue here, pretty much indefinite until you mix it with water. And we'll talk about hide glue here a little bit more in just a couple of minutes. Now, let's get on to some of the other types of adhesives that we're showing you here on the table. We have, in its different viscosities, what has traditionally been called a super glue. Well, that's kind of a generic term, and if we go by the definitions that we talked about earlier, it would not be the correct terminology for it at all, because it is strictly a chemical adhesive, but they do call it a super glue, and again, those differences are trivial. The terms have been used interchangeably for a long time now. So cyanoacrylate adhesives, they come in different viscosities from watery thin all the way up to what they call a gel. And most of the gels are thick enough that if you apply it to a vertical surface, it won't run before it actually bonds. So depending on your application, you may need something from thin all the way up to a gel. There's a medium and a thick that are in between the two extremes, and they all bond very, very quickly, usually in a minute or less. Now, something that in my shop, when I'm going to be working with what's commonly called a CA glue or cyanoacrylate, I always like to have a handy dandy little bottle of debonder, because inevitably I am gonna glue my fingers together or glue my fingers to something. But if you could see Joel behind the camera, he's doing one of these numbers and saying, yeah, me too. So, so I recommend that you always have a bottle of debonder on hand or a can of acetone. acetone will dissolve Ca as well. But always have some kind of a debonder. Heck, in a pinch, you could always raid your wife's supply of fingernail polish remover. That has a lot of acetone in it and can break the bond of Ca as well. But trust me, don't ask me how I know, just trust me, always have debonder on hand. Ca glues can be used with or without what they call an accelerator. An accelerator is simply used, or is primarily used, I should say, if you want to create an instant bond between two pieces. For instance, if I wanted to glue these two boxes back to back like this, and I wanted it right this second, glue on one side, spray accelerator on the other side, bring the two carefully together exactly the way you want them, and you're done. They literally bond that quick in the presence of an accelerator. Hence the term, I suppose, huh? So some of the other types of adhesives that we have that probably are not used or sold here at Woodcraft anyway, quite as often as the ones across the front here, would be, for instance, the hot glue gun. Now, everybody has used, I would imagine, hot glue at one point or another. Now, Infinity Pure has taken this to a whole new level. This is a cordless unit. You plug it in with it on the little charger, whatever they call it. It heats up. You put the stick in there, and just like hot glue, you apply your glue to your surface. This is their multi-purpose, has a 75-second set time. So that's a pretty good amount of time if you're using a hot glue, 1 minute and 15 seconds. That's quite a while. They have a wood-to-wood glue that has 30-second set time, which is pretty good. And then you have wood-to-wood with a 60-second set time. So these two give you a little bit of a chance to reposition material if you need to before that bond becomes final. Back over to this side of the bench here, we have your typical contact cement. These are now coming in both the solvent-based, and now they have what they call a low VOC version, which is not quite as smelly, I guess would be a good word to use. So it's a little bit more environmentally friendly, let's put it that way. They both do the same thing. Now with contact cement, you're going to put it on both surfaces and let it kind of get tacky. Then when you bring those two surfaces together, they're done. There's no repositioning. You can't move the piece around at all. When those two surfaces come in contact with each other, you better have them together the way you want them, because otherwise all bets are off, okay? So contact cement, but it is very, very handy for certain applications. Say you wanted to use a veneer to reface a cabinet. You could put your adhesive on one side of your cabinet, put it on the veneer, and very carefully, starting at the top, making sure to keep the two parts separate, work your way down, and when you get all the way down to the bottom, it's all bonded. There's no air bubbles, anything like that. Be very careful in an application like that, because again, if you let those two pieces come in contact with each other, they are bonded. But it is a very handy adhesive to have. It's also available in an aerosol version. Now, I recently had some experience with this particular product. This stuff is awesome. I had the headliner in the cargo shell over my pickup truck bed had come loose. It was just kind of sagging and hanging there, and I thought, well, you know, I don't really like that. And so I took a sharp knife and I opened up that headliner. I sprayed this in on both surfaces. I let it sit for a few minutes, and then I used a veneer roller, a J roller, to roll that headliner back into place, and it worked like a charm. So really nice product, very easy to use. This is another type of an aerosol adhesive. I have not used this one. This is an all-purpose adhesive. Cures very, very quickly. That is also, where's the other one here? Also comes in a liquid form like this. This is a multi-purpose adhesive, wood, glass, metal, all different types of materials, either in the bottle or in the aerosol version. Chair RX from Brywax. If any of you have ever had to repair the wooden spindles on a chair, you will wish that you had this product if you didn't when you repaired that chair. This stuff is formulated specifically for that application. It comes with a couple of little syringes and several different needles of various sizes. Some of them are straight, some of them are angled. But what this lets you do is actually inject the adhesive inside the joint line without having to separate it completely. But it will let you inject the glue into that joint. It has a fairly high amount of water in it, so as the water is absorbed into the wood and the glue begins to cure, the wood will actually swell, and that helps to lock that joint back together. So if you ever need to repair the wooden rungs on a chair, come in and see us here at Woodcraft and ask us about this Chair RX product, because this is the stuff you'll want. It will make your job much, much easier. Titebond has a glue made specifically for veneering. I have not used this product. I've talked to people that have, and they really, really like it. It doesn't bleed through those very thin veneers, but yet creates a very strong bond. Does not require heat. It does not have to be cured under vacuum, which of course it could if if you're using a vacuum clamping system. If you simply wanted to weight your piece down or clamp it, or whatever process you prefer to use, the cold press veneer glue will work very well for that purpose. Polyurethane glues, sold under the name Gorilla Glue. That's probably what most people are familiar with when they think of polyurethane glues, but Titebond does have one as well. Now, polyurethane glues are a whole different animal because they do require a small amount of moisture in the joint line in order for the glue to properly cure. Now, some people will probably argue with me about this, and that's okay, but in my opinion, water and wood don't necessarily mix very well. So I don't typically use much of this kind of thing in woodworking applications because again, you have to moisten one side of the joint, apply the glue on the other side, bring the two pieces together, clamp them, and as this begins to cure, it actually foams. I'm sure you've probably all seen it. If you've used the Gorilla Glue, you've seen the foam come out of the joint line. That can be difficult to clean up, but it does create a very, very strong bond. I have to give it credit for that. The other thing I don't like about polyurethane glue is if you get it on your hands, you might as well just get used to it, because the only way you're going to get it off, Joel's simulating chopping off his hand. It's not that bad. Trust me, it's not that bad. But pretty much the only way to get it off is to just simply let it wear off. But again, it does create a very strong bond. Hide glue. This comes in a granular version like this. Titebond also makes a hide glue that's already liquid. Now, the benefit to a hide glue is that it has a long pot life, it has a long open time, as well as the bond of this can be broken if you need to. Moisture, heat, those types of things will actually let hide glue release the bond. It's very often used in veneering work. It's also used by a lot of luthiers, by people who build stringed instruments, because there's very low creep to it. You have a long time to work with it, so it's an ideal glue for that kind of an application. If there's a drawback to it, it's that you mix it with water and then you have to heat it in a glue pot to a temperature of somewhere between 140 and 150 degrees. So there is kind of a little bit of a drawback to it. There's some preparation time involved and so forth. It does come in different, what they call a gram strength. There's this one that I grabbed off the shelf this morning is the 315 gram strength. This is high stress. And then there's two that are not quite as, that don't create as strong a bond as this one does. And so from Woodcraft this afternoon, that's our presentation on glues and adhesives. And I'd like to just offer another opportunity for any questions that might be out there waiting for us. Joel, are there any questions from anyone?
No, not at this time, but if I could offer a question.
Well, of course. Joel wants to ask a question.
We talk about epoxies and we talk about resins. I've had several customers confused by that. Is there a difference between the two?
Again, when we talk about epoxy adhesives, and just in case some of you out there weren't able to catch Joel's question, he was asking, is there a difference between the resins? And the basic answer to that would be no. The resins are the same. It's the hardeners that are different. And the basic difference between them is the speed at which the product cures. So the resin in this box would be the same resin that would come with the hardener number 1 or the hardener number 3. This just happened to be the one that I grabbed off the shelf. It comes in gallon jugs, and then you can get the hardener in like quart size and pint size bottles, and it's mixed. These are generally mixed at a ratio of 2 to 1, 2 parts resin to 1 part hardener. These two products, for instance, are a 1 to 1 ratio, so 1 part to 1 part, and that's kind of the answer to that question. The resins are the same. It's the hardeners that are different. All right. Well, folks, we'd like to thank you very much for tuning in this afternoon. And again, if you have any further questions on glues or just want to call and talk about adhesives and so forth, please give us a call, or better yet, come on into the store and we'll talk woodworking and glues and adhesives with you all afternoon if we need to. So again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next Saturday.
Thanks, folks. Also, you can watch our videos on Facebook, and you can also watch them on our YouTube channel, Woodcraft of Spokane. Please check it out, give it a like, and check out our many videos.
Thanks again.